few weeks ago, someone was asking me this, and I didn't get time to cover it yet, so I wanted to cover it now. People were asking me about our perspective on LGBTQ issues, okay? And I was very busy, so I didn't want to do it without giving it proper justice, so we'll just do it quickly here. So there's actually the very interesting story of Lord Ram in regards to the third gender, known as the Hijras. So when Ram was leaving Ayodhya for his 14-year exile, all the residents of Ayodhya came out to see him off, and they actually wanted to go with him. That's why Ram again and again was telling them, go home, I have to do this alone, I can't take all of you with me, the whole city can't come with me. So again and again he told them to go home, but they weren't listening. Finally, he met them all one night and said, all you men and women, all you Nara Nari should return home. In his speech, all Nara Nari, men and women, should return home. And then at that night, he left with the charioteer. What was the name of the charioteer? I forget his name, Dasarath's charioteer. He left at night to escape them. So when he came back 14 years later, and when he was preparing to enter Ayodhya, he saw that outside, on the outskirts, outside the city, all the Hijras were present. Hijras means those who are third gender. And he asked them, what are you doing here still? Like 14 years ago, I told you to go back. And they said, no. You said all Nara Nari should return home. All men and women should return home. But we are neither man nor woman. So we stayed here. And they had their encampment outside the city. And so Ram actually, his heart melted. He thought, just like I did exile for 14 years, they also did exile for 14 years. And so he was very happy with them, and he blessed them. He said, you are always welcome in my Ram Rajya. You are always welcome in my kingdom of Lord Ram. So in the Ram Rajya is described to be the ideal society. Like when Plato describes what is in his Republic, what is the ideal society? If you want to see the ideal society, you go to Ram Rajya. Even now in India, everyone aspires for that utopian society of Ram Rajya. And Lord Ram says to the Hijras, you are always welcome in my Ram Rajya. And he blesses them and gives them certain, you could say, powers. So he gave them the power to bless people and also to curse them. Right? And so it's seen that in Vedic or Indian culture, since thousands of years, whenever there are certain ceremonies performed, like marriages or even children's birth ceremonies, samskars, then the Hijra community is invited. Even death ceremonies, they're invited and they bless the occasion. And so it's seen to be very auspicious in a wedding or in your child's samskar that the third gender, you could say like transgender, or there's many different varieties of it. It's not just one thing. That's why the LGBTQ keeps expanding. Q, A, I, and so many different things start entering it because it's hard to classify. It's like between 0 and 1. How many digits are there? Infinite. As far as you want to expand it, right? Like pi. How many numerals can you expand it to? It's as far as you can go. So it's not easily defined. That's why nowadays in the West, people are arguing and very confused about it. But Lord Ram says no. He gave them some special role because otherwise it's hard for them to get. Generally in society we see, oh, there's something very different, so you're tended, put to the side. Oh, you can't have this job, you can't have this job. So Ram says, no, I give you that seva that you can always perform you're like a priest. You're like one kind of priest who performs ceremonies or who blesses the ceremony. That's why you see them, they'll dance in special occasions. Even for Jagannath, I believe, when Jagannath comes out, I believe there's some Hijras that do some dances for him. So that's one very interesting thing. That's why the Eastern Vedic perspective is very broad. Now, at the same time, it's not that there isn't any social Varna ashram system and hierarchical system. It's there, but there's no it's not taboo. At the same time, those who are of that, what would you call jat, that specific caste or that specific you could say that they're in that kind of category, they have a place, and therefore they're respected. And if you travel by train in India, generally if you go for like a 24-hour train journey, they'll come through the compartments and they will clap and they will do bhiksha. And if you don't give them bhiksha, they will, like, if they are angry with you, they can curse you. We've had stories of brahmacharis. You may know some stories, Rup. I don't know. I remember hearing stories about brahmacharis who wouldn't give them anything, and then later on they saw some bad things started happening to them that day. They lost their whole I remember one brahmachari lost his wallet, his passport, everything. So he wouldn't do that. And generally they don't bug sadhus because they say we are the same jat as sadhus. You are sadhus, you are beggars, and you are kind of outcasts. Sadhus are kind of outcasts from society. That's why Gurudev says we have to do social work, because if we don't do social work, then they don't know how to deal with sadhus, general people. It's like, sadhus are very strange. So the hijras, the third genders, the transgenders in India, generally with sadhus, they're also respectful. And they don't generally, like when we're there, we're traveling with Prabhuji, they don't bug Prabhuji and ask from Prabhuji, because they know he's sadhu. He is like of a superior role, but ultimately, they are all of that sadhu vritti, bhikshuk vritti. Bhikshuk means they maintain their bodies by begging. Right? That's how we maintain ourselves. We're so detached that we take alms, one grain, like a sparrow, picking one grain from each person. So I mean, it's a long, interesting subject. Obviously, we could have a podcast about it and talk for a long time about it. It'd be pretty fun to do that anyhow. But there's one other quick story we'll tell, and it's very interesting because it relates to the previous video we did and the discussion of Arjuna and Ulupi. Arjuna and Ulupi, the Naga princess, the snake princess, half human, half snake, they had a son, and his name was Aravan. So Aravan was a powerful warrior because he was the son of Arjuna and also the son of the Naga princess, who are very powerful. So when the time for the Mahabharata battle came, he also was participating in the battle. And so there's different histories that described his heroic conquests or his heroic activities. Now there's a cult called the Kututanvars in Tamil Nadu, and they worship Aravan, who's also known as Iravan, as their deity, right? And they have an interesting history. Why? Because they're the transgender community. They're also called the Tiruvangais, I think. So they have an interesting history of Aravan, which shows kind of like the origin of their own tradition of the transgender worship. So they say that Aravan, he offered himself in sacrifice to enable the victory of the Pandavas. So in some places it's described he died in the battle. In some places it's described that he offered himself as a human sacrifice to the goddess Durga, which was seen as one way. If a warrior on one side of the army sacrifices himself in front of the deity Kali in a proper ritual, then it's guaranteed that side will achieve victory. So it's described that he was going to sacrifice him to that deity, but he asked Krishna before that, "Oh Krishna," he's also named as Nagarjuna, the son of Arjuna, Nagarjuna, from the Naga princess. So he asked Krishna, "I want to get married before I sacrifice myself." He was still a young guy. He wasn't married yet. He was like a kishore. But no women wanted to marry him because he was about to sacrifice himself. So they say, if we marry you, according to Vedic culture, we're going to become widows our whole life. We marry you the night before you sacrifice yourself, then in Vedic culture you cannot remarry. No man's going to marry a widow. It's very rare. So no one accepted him for marriage. So then Krishna was very merciful, and Krishna said, "I will marry you." Krishna said, "I will appear in the form of Mohini and I will accept you." So Krishna appeared and manifested himself as another form, as Mohini Murti, which is the goddess who bewilders and attracts all beings, Mohini, the very personification of all the objects of all desires, the most beautiful woman in existence. And she accepted Aravan in marriage. Because the reason Aravan wanted to get married is he said, if you die as a bachelor or unmarried, then you're buried. But he wanted to be cremated and to go to the heavens. It's described there that he wanted to be cremated, and it's even in one of the Tamil Nadu Ramayana Mahabharats. So Krishna accepted him. They married as Mohini, Aravan, and then the next day he sacrificed himself to the goddess, and that was the end of Aravan. But there's 3 boons Krishna gave. One of the boons was that he could witness the whole battle. And so it's described that this cult, the Kututanvars, when they worship him, they worship his head. And they take it around in procession. It's a very interesting kind of deity. And so he said that he was able to watch the whole battle just like this Babrik. He witnessed the battle. So from him, this whole community of the transgenders came up. So that's another interesting history. Now, in our Gaudiya line, just to give it a little perspective. Generally, the Gaudiyas, they have the Saki Bekis, which means generally it's men who dress as in a female attire, and they proclaim that we are Sakis of Radha Krishna. But what they end up doing is becoming Sahajya, meaning they try to generally enjoy other people, and they bring it down to Jadras, enjoying each other. Some with men, if they're like homosexual, they're dressed as a Saki, and they're enjoying with another man, thinking that I am the Saki. So they're bringing it into Prakrita Sahajya Ras. And at that time in society, when Bhaktivinoda Thakur came, most of the Vaishnavas were criticized in society. They weren't accepted in civilized society because they were all performing different kinds of Sahajyavad. And Param Gurudev smashed this kind of conception, and Bhaktivinoda also smashed this, and he made Vaishnavism respectable again. So generally in all society, this isn't so much promoted, you would say. Nowadays we have the Galva, right? Gay and Lesbian Vaishnava Association. And there's a lot of things we could discuss about that. And in those topics, it's be an interesting podcast to go through. But the basic idea is that everyone has a place and everyone is welcome. And Puruji says, like, everyone is Atma. Some people were recently saying, oh, the ladies should not be allowed to worship Shalagram and Keshabrat. He said, where's lady, where is man? This is the Atma. Vaibhinangsa Tattva. This is Bhagavan's Atma. In the Gita, Krishna says, Vidyavanaya Sampane Brahmini Gavi Hasne Suni Chaiva Swapakicha Pandita Samedarshana. A wise man sees everyone equally. Right? So whether you're gay or straight, the soul is pure. The soul is pure. So ultimately, everyone can follow that Bhakti Yoga. For certain other areas in Varnashram system, Bhaktivinoda Thakur describes certain things that you should stick to your specific roles. But in Bhakti Yoga, all those classifications are removed. That's why Jaiva Dharma describes how beyond Varnashram, he said like someone who is a Yavana or a Malecha and a Brahmin, they can eat off the same plate if they're a Vaishnava. So it's very interesting. And I just wanted to mention that idea of the Ram, he said Nara Nari should return back. But those who were neither man nor woman, they could not be categorized as either. They stayed. So in the West now there's this whole debate and argument going over, is it a man or is it a woman? How do we call them? Even the pronoun battle, right? You can bring in Jordan Peterson and the pronoun issue. It's like, well, we don't want to be called he, we don't want to be called she. So then what do you call them? You call them they? Well, that's kind of strange also. Why would you call them plural? So now they have many different pronouns they can be called by: z, zer, zed. Many are there. And people mock this and make fun of it, but ultimately the point is that there is a third gender, and within that third gender there's many other distinctions that you can come up that are there. So maybe we just stop here, but if we want to, we could even discuss it a bit. I don't know. It's a pretty interesting topic. What do you have to say, Rup? Later? Okay. Anyhow, yes, everyone should be dealt with the utmost respect and honor, and accepted for their own position. At the same time, we can give the both sides of the argument should be given to some point. So, for example, Jordan Peterson says you shouldn't enforce my speech, force me to call someone zer or something. He said there's never been English common law where someone is enforced a certain mandated kind of speech. And so the idea is that I can call Shrivas a she if I want to, and you shouldn't be able to sue me for $1 million. And now in New York, if you don't call someone by their proper chosen pronoun, then you get a $250,000 penalty. And there's something like 100 recognized genders. So, and people like to think, oh, that's funny, but it's like, this is part of Krishna's Jagat. This is all part of Krishna's creation. And the ancient Vedic civilization honored and accepted all these different personalities. And that's why you can see it in their histories. So we'll stop there.